Hey, good morning. It is February 1st, 2025, and it is a beautiful Saturday morning. It is great to be here and to take this opportunity to talk about something fun, something cool, something that, old, something treasured, and what those things mean to you. And this is one of those things. So, what we've got today is a 1975 Star Trek U.S.S. Enterprise playset from MEGO. And at the time, MEGO kind of was very much the top of the line for action figures. They would do, kind of a head sculpt kind of in the form of like a Kenner, I'm sorry, like a Barbie doll or something like that. But they had little bodies that you could pose, and they evolved over time. But Mego came out with some really cool things, and this is one of those really cool things because this is the original Star Trek series USS Enterprise playset, and I am wondering if there is a way. Yeah, I am looking at this here. We've got. So, really, what I want to show you is how this thing was put together with beautiful artwork and graphics on the back. And as you rotate this thing around, it was meant to be carried because you could store your figures in this thing. And it was a thing of the times in 1975 where people could get these figures and react out, scenes from the show. But this set, what's really cool about this is it opens up. You've got a door right here, right, that you can use when you open this up. And when you open up the play set, you find all the glory of your collection hidden inside here. And as you open that up, you get the full immersive playset of the. Sorry, I dropped one of the phasers. So here's one of the phasers for the figures. But here you have the bridge. Essentially, this is the bridge of the USS Enterprise in the original Star Trek series. And here's the console that the characters can get. And here we go. We've got Captain Kirk's signature captain's chair right here. So we'll set that right there. And ooh, we've got a Gorn. So it looks like his outfit has been changed. So that's the cool thing about these characters is they're fully articulated, right? So you've got posable hands that bend at the wrist. You've got knees and hips that turn, and they've got full swivel on these. And they have really great sculpted heads. So this is obviously Scotty from Star Trek. And each of these characters has their own set of clothes. Now here's the Gorn's actual costume. And what was fun was that these were kind of in line with, the Barbie dolls at the time. Kids could dress and change out the outfits and things like that. So these actually have little gloves that come off, right? So to make the character who it was, you could pull these off, and there's an actual claw under there. But this is what goes over his hand. So, and these little web feet come off. Okay, so there's a regular action figure foot under there. But what was really cool about this playset, what I thought was really fun, was you had different viewfinder graphics on this that you can switch out. And so you've got these gorgeous scenes of action scenes from the show that are depicted on these panels that you could then hang from the front of the bridge and recreate scenes from the show. So here's the here's the hand that comes out and grips the Enterprise and captures it, right? So that was really cool. And what was interesting at the time was that this was a Klingon. So the actors dressed up and looked like this was a Klingon. Hey, Cash Fan, how are you? Welcome to the live. Hey, Dane Leatherwood, hi, welcome. This is the U.S.S. Enterprise 1975 MEGO playset. And we actually, after you get all this kind of set up and pull all the characters and all their little phasers out, you actually have a transporter device as well. So I'm not sure if you can see that from this angle, but here's the transporter. You would put the figure in there, and then you press the green light to send them, and then they can transport in. And look, we got a whole bunch of boots in here that we've got a whole bunch of boots that we've got to pull out. So these are probably Scotty's boots or somebody else's boots here. And what you would do is you would put the figure in there and send the transporter beam, and they could disappear out the back. There's a little door so that they could beam down to the planet's surface that they were headed to. So that was pretty cool for 1975 for this type of a playset to have that kind of attention to detail. And really, you've got Spock here, and we need to get Spock set up on his outfit. So he's got his built-in boots already on there, but we need the blue shirt, the signature science officer shirt. And what's cool about these outfits is they actually have the little insignias on the shirts, and they have their little rank bars on their sleeves. So as you put these on, the right characters, you've got a pretty cool representation of how they were actually depicted in the show. And these are a little tricky. So what you want to do is get the arms in first. And I like to kind of put them into like a diving position like this and kind of feed their head first in here so that you're not overstressing those arm joints, because you gotta remember this is from 1975. So hey Cash Fan, appreciate you, thanks again. Have you collected these, picked these up, found any of these anywhere when you're looking around for things? And again, these have stamps on the back of the characters here. So you can see this one is patent pending, 1974, MEGO Corporation, and made in Hong Kong. So you pull this over the head, get the arms up through the sleeves, right? And as you get that on there, now you've got Science Officer Spock dressed up in his signature shirt. And the little insignia communicator, Star Trek. I'm sorry, not the communicator. That was later, right? but the little insignia on his chest there. And then you've got black pants, and the black pants look like this. You just have to dust those off a little bit. Now, the only thing with the older figures is they don't have the articulation in the ankle on the signature characters, so you got to be careful as you're pulling these boots through these pants that were from 1974 that you don't rip a hole in them, right? So those are important things to pay attention to as you're getting Officer Spock here ready to go out into the away mission world. So you also have little pieces that go along with them. They've got communicators. They've got their little belts. So their little belts can go around their waist here, and on their waist there's a holster for their phaser. There we go. We get that set up there. So you can see there's a little holster and a little holder mechanism for his data pad. Wait a minute. I am looking for this tricorder. All right, well, here's the phaser. And the phaser basically goes into this little holder right here, so he can wear it on his belt. And there he is. There's Officer Spock, Science Officer Spock. And we can set him in the captain's chair here as he is in control of the USS Enterprise right now, as Spock is on his away mission. So these are very delicate characters, and you do need to be careful with them because they come apart quite easily. But you can get them put back together. You know, they just basically have little O-rings and eyelet holes here where they reattach. So we'll get Scotty here suited up. And I think maybe this belongs to the Klingon, actually. So maybe I thought this went to this other fish. No, the lizard man, maybe? Can't remember what this character was called. Does anybody in the chat know what this character was called in the original series? Because I cannot, for the life of me, remember his name. I remember the Gorn, and I remember the Klingons. Oh, and then there's this guy who was, both black and white, and that was very controversial at the time to have a character on television like this, but so was Lieutenant Uhura, who was head of communications. But Gene Roddenberry really tried to kind of break a lot of barriers with his show and show kind of this utopian world where everything was, unified and people had access to all the same things everyone else did. Depending on their rank, they had different responsibilities on the ship. But anyway, very cool to dig this set out. So here's the Klingon, right? He's wearing the wrong outfit entirely, but you basically can just take the boots off. So you get the boots off of the Klingon. And these were made for kids to be able to dress them up and take them out and kind of put different clothes on them and kind of just have fun using their imaginations. And the cool thing about these panels was that each of these represented scenes from the show. So you could stage, different away missions and show the team beaming down to the planet's surface to spread the mission of peace that they were on, to go out and explore strange new worlds. And as they explored strange new worlds, you could change these panels to different scenes throughout the show where they had to deal with different altercations and different alien races and civilizations and bring their message of peace throughout the galaxy as they were traveling to explore these new worlds. And these are just really cool pieces because they've got, such great little artistic drawings on them that depict scenes right out of the show. So this is the 1975 playset. You've got the Klingon. I think this is the Klingon vest, or maybe that's the Gorn's vest. Gosh, I need to pull up some pictures and get these guys all put back together the way they're supposed to be. But we'll definitely get the Klingon here all suited up so that you can see his awesome getup, because I remember how he looks when he's all dressed up. So yeah, these have really great articulation for the time, for 1975. Really good head sculpts, and you just need to be a little bit careful with them, because if you give them a little bit of stretch, you can see there's rubber bands in there kind of holding them together, and over time these little arm joints will get loose and you'll have to replace those rubber bands to get more tension so that the arms stay where they're supposed to stay. But that's okay. You can get a lot of those pieces at your local Ace Hardware or whatever home goods hardware store that you have access to in your area. And they'll have a lot of things that you can help maintain these characters with. And it's just really cool to kind of see something like this from 1975 because, at the time, I remember visiting cousins and things like that had these things. And this particular set was from my in-laws. They had this, that they picked it up for their kids when they were very little in the 70s. And it has managed to last just by taking good care of it. So I've got, let's get his pants on him here. You got to be careful as you're working with some of these characters that you don't rip a hole through these clothes that are from the 70s. So they're just kind of like, almost like Barbie clothes in a way, where they just kind of pull on. But over time, the toes will get holes in them and things like that. So you can find replacements for these things online, but it's becoming harder and harder as these things get older and older. But really, really cool to see a piece of history like this from a show that still is running reruns today, right? And kids in the 70s, so this was 1975 that this playset came out, they didn't have streaming. They didn't have the ability to just watch the show back to back whenever they wanted to. They had to tune in on a special time every night on the network to watch the show. And this playset with the transporter room and everything like that over here, you got the little transporter that spins. Can you see that? There you go. This playset really helped them recall and connect to the episodes that they had watched. And okay, so you can put the boots back on here. And that's how they would kind of recall and enjoy these characters that they saw every week as the new episodes rolled out. And I'm looking for so some of the characters have different boots like this. And I actually think the black boots look really cool with the Klingon. So you can just kind of, swap these things out and they look really cool. So there's your Klingon. It's interesting that the main characters have their boots built into them. And, you can see on the back of Scotty here, if you can read that, you can see his copyright date, 1974, MEGO regulation, U.S. patent, pending, made in Hong Kong. But what's cool is they're not going to lose their boots because their boots are right there. So you can carefully, again, put the pants around the boot so that you don't tear through the fabric. So these things are very old. You've got to take some care with them and make sure that they last. So this is a family heirloom piece that has made it through the generations, and it's really cool to see the way kids react to this today. So you can put this out, and if you're not overly concerned, they're not going to damage it because they want to dress the character and things like that, and you can put these back together. Like if they come apart, it's okay. Like the arms will come apart, and you just have to go and get a new rubber band and stretch it through, and they're good as new. So as long as you don't lose the pieces. Okay, so again, when you're putting the shirts on for these MEGO characters, you kind of want to put them into a diving position like this so that you don't rip the fabric, because 1975 fabric. Look at the detail here. You've got the Star Trek emblem, and look at the rank here on the sleeves. Really cool. So you can see the different shirts. Now see, this one has lost its little Star Trek emblem, and it's definitely seen some outdoor adventures on away missions. There's Scotty's shirt. So we knew we would find his shirt. Scotty's always got to be in red because he would go and down on the away missions, and he would have some of his crewmates with him on the episodes that those poor red shirts, they don't always make it back. But man, you gotta watch out. Never know what you're gonna run into on an away mission. So there you get him diving through the shirt here. You watch his hands so that they don't snag on any of the seams and things like that, and pull that through. And once you get him through there, you can put his arms down. And in the back, you've got a little button snap that goes on much like you would with some of the vintage doll characters of the day. So I'm gonna snap that in place. So there you go. You've got the shirt sealed up. Okay, so now we've got Mr. Scotty. He's ready to go. And I'm gonna set him right here while I let the dogs go outside. Go outside, come on. And we've got the away mission belt. So there we have it. We've got the tricorder here. Or this is actually, I think this is the communicator. Yeah, that's what this is. This is the communicator. It's very small. Whoa, I dropped it. Oh man, where did it go? They're really small. Really small, so it's easy to lose these things. That is how small it is. It's like it's smaller than a Tic Tac, or about the same size as a Tic Tac, or a little chiclet, smaller than a chiclet of gum, right? So you can see that if that is not in here, it can get lost. And you'll have a hard time, but if you see some of these as you're, picking through Goodwill or a pile of toys or at a garage sale or something like that, you got to look out for stuff like that, because you'll know what it goes to. Chances are people won't remember, but that right there, that tiny little thing, is the communicator that they use to call Scotty to get beamed back up onto the ship. And also have, where are all my phasers? Where'd your phasers go, guys? Just had a whole pile of them here. So where did I move that to? Okay, we got got Spock here, and I must have set it on the table here and put this on top of it. But yeah, that's how quickly you can misplace this stuff. So you gotta keep a vigilant eye on these things. All right, so we'll get you a little closer look here at the transporter room. So we would take Mr. Scotty here and put him into the transporter and say, all right, Mr. Scott, go down to the surface and let's see if you can see him a little better there. Okay, so there he is. He's in the transporter, and you basically have a green light and a red light. Okay, so there he goes. And he's gone. Where did he go? Well, on the back side of the playset, you have this little panel right here. And this panel opens up so you could take the character out of the transporter, and then he could go on his away mission down on the planet's surface. So there he comes off the ship and goes on his away mission down on the surface here. So this is a 1975 MEGO Star Trek figure, and these are fully posable. They've got their little belts, so we can put on his belt, and we'll immediately put his communicator in his belt because he's going on an away mission and needs to be able to communicate with the crew so that he can get back. And these are super easy to lose, so you want to be careful. You get that in there. So if you see that, little thing out in the wild in a pile of odds and ends, you'll know that's a 1975 MEGO communicator for Star Trek. And that goes on his belt right here. So he put his belt around his shirt. Click that in. And these are just really kind of really well done, the head sculpts on these things. So you look at Spock here, and he's got his ears, and you've got his phaser here on his belt. Now, of course, yes, they can hold their phasers, and they just kind of click into their hand. Again, using, oops, sorry, Mr. Scotty. Scotty, I'm sorry. How can you be a miracle worker if you don't get out of the way there? All right. So there you go. You got his phaser is in place, and he's got his belt and his ready to go accompany Mr. Scott on an away mission, representing the U.S.S. Enterprise on their mission to boldly go where no one has gone before, or no man has gone before, as it was in the original series. And these play sets can be found if you know what you're looking for. And this one is really cool because it is the bridge of the Enterprise, and we have these that will show where we're headed. So we just put that up here on the view screen. And let's just slide in on this little holder right here. It's really cool to see the artwork on these things. So maybe they beam down to the planet, and they are going to encounter an interaction with the Klingon, and you can get him dressed up how you want him to look. And as you're putting things on like this, which is just a gorgeous, like very well sewn, put together little vest, you'll slide his arm backwards so that he can feed it through the sleeve there like this. And as you get that on there you go. All right. Looks a little different than the Michael Dorn Klingon character from Star Trek The Next Generation, doesn't he? But that was a Klingon with a goatee, which was very alien in the days to have a goatee, I guess. But pretty cool. So we got the boots on here. He can interact with Scotty and Mr. Spock while we get our other characters here decked out. So there's an endless supply of characters that they came out from the MEGO line, and all of these are vintage 1974 figures, and they look really cool. So let me see if I can get caught up here on the chat to see. Welcome to the live chat, and appreciate you guys. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for the follows. I hope if you like this content, I am all about vintage toys and showing you how to care for them, showing you how to preserve them, and you know, keep them for future generations, because that is tied to a iconic pop culture show. And when you have something like this that has staying power that is still in reruns today, it's really cool to have a piece like this, or a Star Wars playset or anything else like this that ties back to something that was as iconic of a pop culture sensation that kids can look at and marvel at, the adaptability of putting the clothes on, taking the clothes and changing things out, putting different boots on people, and really just kind of coming up with their own little version of the show in their heads. And you've got all these cool alien characters that you can have interact with the crew. The Gorn, there's the Gorn. So the Gorn's really cool, and the Gorn is actually, I think the Gorn is in the wrong costume here. So yes, those are his Gorn claws, I think, and his Gorn. But I think these flipper feet go with this guy, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm gonna have to look into that and see if I can get that figured out. But the leg joints. So when you have a family heirloom piece like this, these leg joints that MEGO made were basically a peg and kind of like a post and clip system. So you have a receiving little clip that the peg would slide through the knee on this side and come through and clip right there to make the knee armature bend like this, right? So, hey, welcome, Rish. Welcome to the live. Good to see you, sir. Or, wait a minute. Yeah, this one's gone. So I have a problem here that I'm going to have to find the peg to snap back in, because I have the receiving post in the leg there, and it's really important to take care of these things so that they have staying power for future generations to enjoy. But that peg would go right through here, and it would be a solid piece like this on the end, and as that slides in there, it snaps through this little O-ring, and that little ring right there would click the knee joint into place so that you can get this bending articulation that they started out with in 1974. Look at the trademark on that. So, a lot of the advancements that MEGO came out with were brought along to future action figure play lines, and to get the articulation that they had with the O-rings and rubber bands, and get this swivel hip, and you got leg movement here that can go all the way around like a regular body, almost like a drawing figurine, right? So that you can put these in poses. And to have something like that inspire the toy lines of the future generations of shows is just really awesome. So there you have it. And as you mess around with these things, you can put the different outfits on them, and that's what kids really like to do. So my kids grew up not afraid to handle these things, because that's what they were. They were toys, and they were family heirlooms passed down from parents, and the kids would sit on the floor. They would watch the show, and they would act out these scenes from the shows after the show was over, because the show would air 7 o'clock or something like that before they would have to go to bed. And everybody always knew the theme song to go to bed in the 70s was the MASH theme song. So there you have it. So that is what the peg in the leg looks like. And the post goes through and snaps in right there. So it's just really cool to have something like this from 1974 and to be able to appreciate it, care for it, and have the ability to showcase these pieces to kids that have never seen anything like this before. I mean, things nowadays are all on their phones or on a video game. And to be able to use their hands and touch the fabric and know that, oh, that's leathery, and that was kind of like what that looked like on the show. And wow, look at these little ornate little buttons on here. And their imaginations can go wild when they're, finally put with something like this in front of them. And, for serious collectors, they're going to take something like this and they're going to keep it on a shelf and protect it, which is great. Everybody has pieces like this that are cherished, that they want to preserve and protect, and that's great. That's totally your call if you want to do that. I enjoyed having my kids able to play with these because they're easy to fix. They're really easy to put back together, and you can go to your local hardware store and get a lot of the O-rings these days. You can get a lot of the little brackets to pull arms back together inside the bodies. And once you do that, you get comfortable with it to where you realize, oh, okay, it's not that big of a deal if somebody plays with this and enjoys it. So you've got the clothes that are kind of like the pants that you would have seen for like a Barbie doll or a Ken of the age. And they've got the elastic in here. So these are the things that are going to wear out, right? The elastic's going to lose its elasticity over time. That's okay. I mean, he's not really walking around, getting a lot of wear out of these things. So the elastic's going to hold up just fine. So I always put the seam of the elastic waist into the back of the character so that I don't see that on the front when I put the belts on and things like that. So, hey, appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming to the live. Hope you would give us a like if you like the content. Please give us a follow. We are doing our best to show people how to take care and preserve these treasured pop culture toys that either your parents grew up with or maybe you were exposed to as a kid when you went to a great grandparent's house and they had these things, and now you can have these out for future generations to enjoy by taking good care of these things and making sure that they are available so that people can check them out and see all the amazing things that these can do. So you can put different boots on these. Oh, there. Now we can have a Klingon and a Gorn having a battle. Urgh. But the head sculpts on these for 1974 were just very well done. And to have a toy line company like MEGO kind of go into this level of detail you can tell that this is what inspired, you know, the GI Joe line for sure. And they took a lot of the technology from the GI Joe line in the '60s to apply to these figures and use that articulation that the GI Joe characters had. So there you go. Pretty cool stuff. What do you guys think about that? Do you like that? Give us a like if you think this stuff's really cool. If you're on the hunt for things like this, let me know. Drop some comments in the chat. It's always good to go to conventions and toy shows if you're looking for pieces like this, because you can sometimes find a collector that'll have, you know, pieces like this or parts that are original parts. So just like you'd maintain a classic car, you can maintain these things with original vintage parts as well by going to conventions and going to shows and finding the people that have the spare parts and the plugs that go into the legs to put these back together so that you've got a complete figure. And again, so when you're putting the costumes on, the articulated feet characters, I like to bend them down so that they don't snag on the pant legs as you're putting that on. And once you get the legs in, then you can get him into a diving position. So if you're not careful, so you'll see right here, that's where a foot has snagged on the edge. And so now you've got to make sure that that doesn't happen. And if you have a sewing machine, you can take this, flip it inside out. There's a seam right there where you can repair that seam and basically sew that back together so that it's not going to come apart. But this is fabric from 1970s, and you got to be careful with it. Because it can tear, and these things are hard to replace. But I don't want to scare you. Like, don't be afraid to handle it. Just take the time, don't rush. And as you're putting things on like this, make sure you're guiding the foot into the footbed of the costume so that it slides on without causing any damage. And then move over to the other one, slide that one on, get the foot in there, and there you go. All right, well, hey, I've got to head out, so I will see you guys next time. Enjoy the day, and we'll talk soon. Take care.